It's a Friday morning, and in just a couple of hours, I'm packing up a truck and moving myself, my husband, my daughter, and my 2 dogs to the country. And just like today's guests, I'm going to be going through a lot of windy roads to end up at my destination. Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. If you're stuck in a rut, feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've achieved all of the things that you set out to and are wondering what next, or how do I even make this better, then I know that you're going to love today's episode. Hey there, thanks so much for joining me on the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I have recorded this on a Friday morning. In preparation for the move to the country, I have banked up my podcast with some amazing guests so that whilst I'm away for the next, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 weeks, however long it takes, I know that the podcast is going to flow on well without me, and I'm not going to have to dedicate 8 hours a day to running my business. I've spent the last several months prepping for this moment. And if you've followed along the story, you'll know that we were supposed to be able to get our house back in March, but that didn't happen. And through all the legal process, 8, nearly 9 months later, we finally get our house back. And even that hasn't gone as smoothly as I would have liked. But this episode is not about the country house rescue. I'm sure I will do an episode about that, and follow me on Instagram stories. I'm actually going to make a commitment to be posting on my Instagram stories all the fun and tragic things that happen along the way as we pull apart, redesign, and put back together the little country house. But lots of things have had to happen in order for me to be able to take this big chunk of time out of my business. One is I have to have amazing people in my team. And I do have that. I have built this team who are fantastic at what they do. They love you guys. They love our customers. They love helping people scale their businesses. And they truly care about each and every one of our customers. So I know that if I'm not here, my people, you guys, are going to be in amazing hands. I guess you could say I've forecasted what's going to happen in my business. I knew that this time was going to come and I was going to want to enjoy renovating the property. I actually love doing the DIY stuff. I love the building. I love the design work. I mean, every inch of this property has been mapped out because I've had so much time to put into designing the home. So while I still have client commitments and I've got my Scale Your Store commitments, the fact is I've given a lot of responsibility to my team to keep the business running. And honestly, that's one of the secrets to scaling. And scaling businesses is exactly what today's guest, Brad Shepard, has done. I loved his story. I love that he was one of the veterans of e-commerce before it was even a thing. I mean, he predates me, and I thought I was one of the founders of e-commerce. He has an amazing story about finding a niche of customers and then creating products for them, not creating a product and trying to find customers. And guys, it is much easier to scale when you already have the people who want what you sell. And of course, we have this affinity with real estate and how he transformed or branched out the e-commerce business to have a real estate arm, and then how he's gone on to scale a different business from there. I think you are going to love today's episode, whether you're a real estate junkie like I am, or you just love to scale businesses, or you just like to see how people's lives and the journeys that they take can sometimes hinge on just seeing an opportunity and seizing it. So let's jump into today's episode with Brad Shepard from Sugar House Investments. And remember to keep up with me at the Selena Knight on Instagram. Pay attention to the stories if you want to see what's happening at Sal's Country House Rescue. Now, as I finish up this episode, I'll be packing up a truck and moving with my family, with Ed, Lana, and the two dogs to the country. If you've been following this episode for a while, you'll know for about the last 8 months, I've been embarking on what I've called Sal's Country House Rescue. The day has finally come when I get my house back. So, just like me, today's guest has an affinity with real estate and has loved investing in real estate from back in his college days. He went to college and thought he was going to head into commercial real estate and even went and interned with a really large commercial property firm. However, things took a little bit of a change, a little bit of a journey shift. And today he's going to talk to us not only about real estate, but about what it was like being in e-commerce before e-commerce was even a thing. So welcome to the show, Brad Shepherd.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know we could probably geek out for a long time on property investing, but I can probably geek out just as much on talking about e-commerce before it was a thing. So tell us a little bit how you got started in e-commerce and when. I think most importantly, when you got started in e-commerce.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a winding story, so I'll do my best to keep it succinct. I went into college, with the idea of going into commercial real estate for my career. That was my intention. I was thinking finance degree for the undergrad, go get a little bit of work experience, go back and do an MBA with international commercial real estate being the focus. So in between my sophomore and junior year of college, I did an internship with a large firm up in Seattle focused on skyscrapers and building new malls, both domestically and internationally. And I had a blast, learned a ton. Came back from that, like for sure, like that's the direction I want to go. Still needed some cash to, make my way through the rest of college. And so I got a student job with an online retailer. And this is like 1999 when things were just kind of getting going with online retail. We had some successes, we've had some pops, some stores that had gone under. But for me, it felt like, hey, this is kind of cutting edge. It's like, cool. I can tell my friends I work for a .com. That was still like a big deal.
Look, I was in e-commerce in 2006, 2007, and I'm considered one of the founders, but you're in there before it too. You're in the 1990s. So you are right. Like a veteran.
if I still feel like a kid. So, I mean, it's hard to accept that title, but yeah, it was just a good time. I was essentially employee number 2 for this little organization, and it was an online bookstore selling all the things you would expect to find at a bookstore. Essentially, it was. I hate to use this analogy because it was nothing like Amazon, but it was Amazon in its early days, right? Books, pencils, notebooks, that kind of stuff. The paraphernalia you'd find at bookstores. And by the time I went into it with just the idea that this was going to be a little student job, pay my bills, help me pay tuition, and that was it. But by the time I graduated, 9/11 had happened. The economy wasn't that great. The job offers I did get weren't that exciting, and this little business had grown quite a bit where we had several employees I was managing. It was turning into something kind of cool, and it looked like maybe I'd have an opportunity to buy a slice of it. And so I chose to stay and ended up being there for almost 9 years total. But yeah, it was an incredible journey. It was all about building up the email list. This was, pre-social media. So it was email. Maybe even some billboards along the way as well, the old school marketing. But yeah, it ended up being a fantastic journey. I learned a ton. And also throughout there, I was able to, keep my fingers into the real estate scene a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's the short version of my long winding journey.
So I have to ask you, people forget about the internet, and I have a point of reference because this is how we work timelines, right? My point of reference is my daughter was born in 2009. And so I was pregnant in sort of late 2008, 2009. And when she was born, we didn't have data on our phones. Right. I remember my husband buying a dongle for the laptop to bring it to the hospital to upload the photos of the baby to send to his family back in the UK. I can't remember when we got dial-up internet, but how did you navigate being an online store back before internet was really a thing. It certainly wasn't at our fingertips like it is today.
Right now, the idea of, having to sit down at your computer and wait for a connection to come on and then, load up your website. Right. Just, it's hard to even fathom. And, that's happened in our lifetime as, since we were adults. And it's just, it's easy to forget how different it was just 10, 15, 20 years ago and how much has changed since then. Now we all do it from our phones. But yeah, it was, certainly, this was a US based company, primarily focused on US customers. It was kind of a novel idea. We were, certainly niche. It was, definitely, we had our affinity group, people who wanted to stay in touch, that maybe, just had various motivations to be able to stay up to date on the latest and coolest and what's coming out in this niche industry. And so they were willing to give email addresses. And it was certainly, we had seen some of those early online retailers in the late 90s, I can't remember some of those, pets.com, the grocery delivery ones that were, came out big and then exploded. But, we found our little place there in this online world. Really, I'd really attribute to the niche. It was a niche that wanted these goods that were otherwise really hard for them to get in any brick and mortar setting. And so they had, essentially had to turn to the internet to get these types of materials that we were selling. And then we were able to just be in the right place at the right time.
So everybody's thinking, what is this niche and why, how can I leverage it right now?
Well, for good, it was a religious niche. It was, a particular, church affiliation, with people, members of this church throughout the country. And outside of, certain locales, it was, there were no brick and mortar stores offering the books and trinkets that would play to this market. And so we simply made that accessible.
This is a true case of finding the customers and then building the product afterwards, like finding the product after you found the customer niche. Because quite often what we do is we go, oh, I've got this amazing product, or I can see this amazing gap in the market, and we fill it, and then we try and get the customers to come to us. But it sounds like the founder of the company that you were working for was like, there's a whole bunch of people who want this stuff. Let's just make it and get it to them, which is a really smart way to do business.
Yes, it was really insightful. And it seems so, commonplace now, but how do we get this? We've got this audience, they want these goods are not available where they live. How do we make that happen? And those systems, it was new. It was a novel idea at the time. And at the same time, so we were retailing products from other publishers and distributors, but also starting to create some of our own materials. Our very first product was a day planner. And this day planner, you remember those Franklin Covey day planners back in the day?
I used to have like the big, thick, I had to have A4 though, because I had a lot of notes to put in those things.
Yeah, the A4s. Wow. Okay. So you were serious.
I felt very important carrying around that A4 planner.
I bet that screams importance. So we made a version for this audience of essentially Franklin Day Planner, and it would have just little notes and reminders that would, again, play to this audience, and sold a ton of those things. And what we did was we would say, hey, you've got this cool planner. We can email you. We'll email you once a week with cool events around your area or around the country that would fit well in this audience, for you to include in your calendar. And that started our weekly email list. A couple of years of that, we turned that into a daily email that was going out. And that, from those humble beginnings, at the end, when we sold that company in 2009, we had built that up to over 600,000 subscribers to that, but it started from that little day planner. It's called, the weekly calendar email is what it was.
And I suspect that, first of all, I'm just in awe that you were emailing people, because email marketing is like my special sauce. I'm in awe that you were doing it, because we didn't all get spam back then. Like the things in our inbox were actually important. But what you've done is, again, you found the customers and said, how can I serve them with these emails? And the products and that you were creating for them weren't just selling stuff for the sake of selling stuff. You were selling a product that was going to help them in their daily life. And then the emails that you sent, and I'm assuming the products that you sent that went with it, were things that would build on that as well.
Absolutely. They're meaningful, and meaningful in the sense, some, a little keychain or a little pen with a cute little theme on it, maybe that meaningful is a little stretch, but it was being an affinity audience, an affinity product. It would help these people feel connected to this religious organization that was otherwise, could feel distant. And, I've got right now, my sister-in-law, she was actually involved in that same organization. Back in the day. She's running an online retail store at this point. It's all about bees. Has nothing to do with any religion. It's just bees. Everything is themed bees, pottery, jewelry, notebooks, postcards, whatnot. And people she just does fantastically because people who like bees are really into bees in a strange way.
My husband, we've got 2 beehives. My husband
there you go.
is a bee
so
person.
You know it. So, it really is, for the bee person, that's a meaningful thing. I might look at it and think, okay, that's, trinket. But when you're talking about these affinity groups, they're very meaningful.
They're also, in a way, and I'm going to say this word and people will get the wrong impression, but they're almost status symbols, and they're status in the sense that when somebody who can relate to the same thing, so someone from that same religious persuasion sees it, you automatically move up the chain because now we have that affinity. Now we have something in common. And I think we forget, and good brands do this really, really well. Like I always pull out Lululemon, the athletic wear, because they do this
Right.
really, really well. And their little logo is so small, but yet people are Lululemon people. Like they're crazy for it. So good brands manage, and this is impact, right? This is how you build a brand that customers will flock to, not because you're serving your own purpose, but because you're serving your customers really well. And you did what I did before it was a thing. You built this community without kind of knowing it, and then you leveraged the community, but in a really meaningful way.
Right. Absolutely. And then, that's been a lesson that I've tried to apply in other endeavors, but you're right. It comes down to that community. What you've got, I mean, the Lululemon fans are hardcore as well. Right. And they're not going to go buy the competitive brand. They're not going to be wearing the Nike yoga pants, or, they're going to be only getting the Lululemon ones, because that you build that community, you build that identity around it as well. When an identity already exists and then you can tap into that, there's a huge shortcut right there. Lululemon had to do that from scratch. We were able to look at an identity that was already in place and think about, how do we take these things that are meaningful to this group to them already, that are identify with these already.
So you said that you really leveraged email marketing in the beginning. And as I said, I love email marketing. So how have you then translated that as you've moved along? Because we haven't actually talked about it yet, but how did you well, first of all, I've got so many questions. First of all, did you end up buying into the company?
Yes, actually, that was part of me staying after I graduated from college. We had to work that into the deal. I told them, hey, this is fun. I'm having a good time, but this was a small town. I told them one of my requirements for my job after college was I wanted to go somewhere where we had a professional baseball team. Like it had to be a city that was big enough to have its own baseball team. And this little town was not that. And so, how do we make this exciting again? And being able to buy into the company was that. And so when we about a year or so after I did graduate college, we took this email list and turned it into a print magazine. And when we first launched it, we were doing every other month. When we launched that magazine, we had to partner with some other people who had some expertise on that side that we didn't have. And it was, so I had a little small slice after graduating college. And then I was able to expand that when we brought on these other partners into the company to do the print magazine. And then over time, several partners chose to go different routes and pursue other opportunities. And I had an opportunity to buy them out as those events happened. And so over that course of years, I was able to, it was always a minority shareholder, but was almost, almost got to a point of being equal with the founder over those years. And so, at the end, we were essentially, other than him having a deciding vote, I was, and he had essentially, in the way we ran things, was an equal say in how things were executed.
So I want to know why you chose to sell such a niche business. But before you answer that question, was it being in this e-commerce business that was flourishing? What put you into real estate?
Yeah. So I'll try to do the short version.
We love the story. Give us the story.
So as this company grew, we had the print publishing side. We had, a small little warehouse for fulfilling the orders, some customer service folks. At its biggest, I think we were up around 12 or 13 employees. So by no means large, but it was, a decent sized operation. And when we were running the online retail for years, that was my Christmas. Like, the Christmas was the busiest time of year, of course, from Halloween until, a few days before Christmas. It was all hands on deck, and we were out there late at night just fulfilling orders, shipping boxes. And it was exhausting, to be honest. And so it was 4 or 5 years of doing that. And we all felt like, okay, how do we get our lives back now? We built this thing.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And it controls us at this point. And we had began a relationship with another company. It ended up being the company that bought ours. And again, a long winding pathway, but we actually struck an agreement in turn, kind of some bullet points on them acquiring us. And when they took it to their board to get approval, their board said, not yet, put it on back burner. And so we struck a marketing arrangement with them. And in that marketing arrangement, they took over the fulfillment of the orders, and all we had to focus on was the marketing. They loved the fact that we had them
outsourcing fulfillment.
Oh my goodness. All of a sudden, overnight,
I get my life back.
Yes. Overnight, we got our Christmases back. We got our whole, winters back without all the customer service elements that came with it. And so we became a marketing arm. So now they saw us, they knew we were really, we even though they were larger, they saw we were beating them pretty handsomely on the online retail side. They had the brick and mortar stuff, and we're just starting to figure out the online stuff. So they saw us having the expertise in that. Plus they love this print magazine, which they still own and operate today. And so, that arrangement freed us up quite a bit. Now we've got this massive marketing arm and free time. What are we going to do with that? We started picking up.
This is how your business grows, though. This is, people who are listening don't understand why. One of the first things I quite often do with my clients is to outsource fulfillment to 3PL for exactly that reason, because so much time and money and energy and resources gets pushed into fulfillment when someone else actually has a business doing that. They can do it quicker, they can do it faster, they can do it better, and they can do it cheaper.
There's no reason to be expert at packing boxes.
Nope.
Shipping out the box,
unless
labeling boxes, unless that's your business, right? Exactly. Yeah. But when there's those resources already exist, and if you want to just build this brand and get good at the marketing side, hand off that fulfillment to somebody else that is their business.
Because what happened when you had the free time and the brain space?
Yes. Now we've got this brain space back. Now we could go do some really cool things. And so along the way, I had picked up a couple of my own little rental portfolios just there in that town that I was renting out. Very traditional, put 20% down, use it as a rental. I was doing that kind of stuff on the side. But now in the business, we took this free time that we had there, some capital that we had there, to go buy some really nice, fun, very unique properties in areas that this religious group likes to visit. And we would buy properties that had some historical significance. They all had a story to them, like something early in this, in some, 150 years ago, this event happened here that was applicable and interesting to this affinity group. And so we would buy these properties, fix them up, and then run them as vacation rentals. And again, this is mid 2000s.
There's no Airbnb.
There's no Airbnb. We were doing this off of our email list. We would tell our email subscribers. And the print magazine. And the print, for sure. And then, so we would tell these, we found a company that had in the early days, pre-VRBO, but had an online system where you could book and see the calendar, so people could go on there and book their own reservations. And so we would, use the marketing, point people to that website. And with a group that we kind of had some, some reasons to trust, it was literally, when somebody rented, we would give them the keypad code to get in and ask them to sweep up and, put the towels and the sheets in the washer and dryer before they left. And then the next person would come and pick them out of the dryer and make their beds. And that was it. So we were managing these things from 2,000 miles away.
Very low cost, low touch.
Yes, very low touch. But it was fun to travel out and to see them and to stay in them and to explore these towns. We had 4 or 5 of those running. We're enjoying that. We got to a point that we actually had a chance to acquire some empty land in a cool little area. We decided to build a building there, built it with, again, the company that ended up buying us. We built the main floor to be a brick and mortar retail store for them. They agreed to it. They signed a lease. But it's just a really cool area. And then we put vacation rental suites on top of that, on the top story.
I feel like this is like the jam and the cream on top for your niche. It's like, I can go to this place that's interesting. I can stay in a nice apartment, and I got the shop downstairs.
Exactly.
It's like Disneyland.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. And so, that was our first, development deal, actually our really only development deal. We had a chance to buy next door. There was a dilapidated 10-room hotel next to it. We bought that and fixed it up and ran them together. So it was, now my commercial real estate dreams are coming true.
In a very weird way. Do you know, I mean no offense when I say that, because I have no idea which niche you are, but I was watching one of those Hotel Impossible episodes. Have you ever watched that with the guy who goes in and fixes up the hotels?
No, I have heard of it, but I haven't.
It's an American show, and this hotelier goes in and he fixes up the hotels that are all run down and they've got bed bugs and whatnot. And he goes, in one of the episodes, he goes to a hotel near this giant ark, like they've built a replica of Noah's Ark. And when you were telling me, I'm like,
what you're talking about?
Were you on Hotel Impossible? Was it this hotel, or was this the hotel that you acquired next door?
I'm the host of that show. Didn't you know? No, it was not that group. We're not doing arcs. In case you want me to say it, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I don't know anything about religion, so
okay,
you can tell me that. It means nothing.
Perfect. All right. So, but the same idea. So I'm trying to stay just high level on that, because the same ideas apply regardless of what niche. Go 180, religious, not religious, something completely different.
Bees.
The same principles apply.
Yeah, bees.
Yeah, bees. Exactly.
With your sister.
Exactly.
So you sold the business, and did the business also sell off all the property as well?
So it was we sold off the entire business in different transactions to different buyers. And so again, that partner that already had the brick and mortar stores, they took the magazine, the email list, and everything to do with it, the retail world, the ecommerce world, and then the properties. Both my partner and I had held on to some, but sold the business of that and that hotel to others.
So I'm guessing you walked away with this with a bit of cash up your sleeve.
It gave me a little flexibility, not like, don't have to work again another day in my life kind of flexibility, but it gave me some.
Give you some assets.
Now what do I want to do? What do I want to do when I grow up? Kind of.
How old were you at this point?
29.
Wow. That's a lot to fit in by the time you're 30, isn't it? And now you have a little bit of a nest egg and the opportunity to, like you said, do something new, because you've kind of already fulfilled a lot of the things that you set out to do.
It certainly, I wanted some more freedom. I wanted, certainly had some bigger ambitions, and it really wasn't sure what to do next. I had these goals of doing something, starting something of my own from scratch with my wife and me. You had a lot of other
personal, baseball team.
Exactly. I didn't need a baseball team. No, thank you. I like, small, keep my freedom type of organizations. And that's another thing that you can do on the commerce side is you don't have to have employees. You can make a really good living without taking on a whole lot of responsibilities for other people's welfare. And so, that was a question of what do we want to do? So I kind of putzed around a little bit for a year or so, talking to some people, exploring some opportunities, wondering about, which direction do I go now? And my wife and I, again, through some personal experiences, we started getting into the health and nutrition and wellness scene, and liked it, fell in love with it. We were shopping at the organic food stores. I love going up and down the aisles and turning over the labels and see who these companies were and what they were making. And we kind of got this idea, like maybe we should do something in the food scene. So, and we're kind of feeling like we're done living here. Like, where else do we want to live? We didn't really know. Let's do some exploring. And so we actually spent a year vagabonding. We flew down to Costa Rica. We spent a few months there. We spent a few months over, actually a couple months in New Zealand and a few months in Australia. I think I mentioned that to you when we spoke before. That's what, as we were vagabonding, as we were going around to these places, we ended our trip in Bali. We would go to these organic cacao plantations, these farms that were growing chia seeds and hemp seeds, and the organic banana plantations, just soaking it in. We're having a blast. In fact, in Melbourne, I got a chance to work with a raw chocolate manufacturer. Got to learn the e-commerce side of the food side of e-commerce and see their distributions. I had a blast. And so then after doing that experience, we came back to the States. We went to the headquarters for Whole Foods Market, which is in Austin, Texas. That's why we ended up planting there to develop something on the natural food scene. And spent 3 years working with some various companies there, again learning some distribution about the distribution in the US and the manufacturing process. Nobody makes their own food. It's all outsourced. So learning how that's all done, which angles are still to be filled and which ones are really competitive. And it just, at the end of all that, decided that wasn't the route I wanted to go. It was just, didn't see that as being the thing that was going to be my life's calling and provide for my family the way I want to provide for my family. And so what do? It finally dawned on me, real estate. Oh, yeah.
Go back to basics.
Exactly. And that's where I'm at now. And I do it in a way that I still apply those e-commerce principles, building up my presence, and to sum it all up, I raise capital from investors who want to participate in real estate as passive investors. They don't want to be the landlords. They don't want to do the fix and flips. They want the tax advantages. They want the solid returns, but not the hands-on stuff. And so I work with them to raise money from those types of individuals, place them with the deals that we're doing. We're buying and fixing up apartment complexes and mobile home parks and self-storage properties. So that's my role now. And the way I'm getting connected to these potential prospective investors is through my email marketing and my social media presence. All those things that I've go back 20 years to where I learned originally in that first endeavor coming out of school.
Do you think that first job and staying with the company gave you the insight and the experience to feel confident about going out and brokering those deals with other people? Because I know that even when it comes to getting venture capital for a business, a lot of business owners just don't know where to start. They don't know how to broach it. They don't know how to get their company ready for those kinds of things. They don't have the connections. So do you think that beginning business actually gave you this confidence to go and do it?
I think so. Thinking about those early opportunities, what was going on in the economy back then when I first graduated and when I graduated, and the types of roles that were being offered, they were so limited. And, of course there would have been growth opportunities, but where I was able to be, a significant partner and see, put together, partnerships and acquisitions and go out there and develop, and we raised money for that hotel that we built, and being involved in all these various aspects as a 20-year-old, in my mid-20s, young 20s, that was incredibly knowledge building and confidence building for me. And I've always known, no matter what I've done, that I know how to market. I know how to get in front of people. The techniques have changed, right? SEO today is a completely different ballgame 20 years ago. But I know how, what angles to play, what approaches, where to outsource, the things that I'm not good at. When we first landed there in Texas, and I was working, I wanted to work with some food manufacturers. The contract work I was doing for them was their marketing, helping them develop sales plans and getting in front of other retail buyers, meaning the store buyers that would place the food products on their shelves, and doing their social media marketing as well. And so it was, these are skill sets I knew that I could bring to whatever endeavor I wanted to pursue. When I was able to see how I could connect that element with commercial real estate, it was, That's a perfect little marriage right there. And unlike the food scene, the dollars and the margins are much different in real estate, where, okay, I can focus just on this element and do really well by my family.
I was just sitting there thinking, I have always been very passionate about having multiple streams of revenue. Even when I had my retail stores, we obviously had our bricks and mortar stores, we had our online stores, but then we had these affiliate relationships before I even knew that was a thing. We had a baby and kids store. And so we used to get a referral fee from a, a kids first aid trainer who would come in and use our space because we had their customers, right? All the people on our list were mums. And so it was a win-win. Our customers were super happy that we found this qualified baby first aid person. And they were super happy because we just gave them 5,000 potential customers that they could get in front of. And so they were paying us to give us to access our customer base, but also to use our space. And so we had a number of relationships. I don't think they were ever quite formalized because I didn't know any better, but we just had these different income streams that we would bring in, because if times ever got tough or if product didn't turn up, you always had these other things that you could leverage and sell to your customers that were actually good for everybody. And you did that right back at the beginning when you went into the print and when you went into the vacation homes. I'm thinking now about your investors who come to you. Is that what you think they're looking for? They're looking for diversifying their income streams?
Absolutely. I work with the way the rules are written here, at least in the US, is that to get access to these kinds of deals, I would say that working with a professional group who knows how to go in and buy a 200 unit apartment complex, turn it around, fix it up, streamline the operations, sell it for more than they bought it. That's a lot less risky than the average individual goes out and tries to buy a home themselves, go through that whole rehab process. What you see on the fancy, the HD TV shows that, make it all look fun and appealing. For me, that's a lot more risky. I've done those and I've done well on some. I've lost money on others. I've never lost money on one of the apartment deals because we've got this amazing team that are professionals and we know how to do this. And so unfortunately, it's structured so that it's because these are private deals. The in the US, at least, there are some requirements of having certain net worths or certain incomes to be able to legally invest in these opportunities. So,
and I suspect that's just to make sure you're not going to lose your life savings.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. They want to make sure, the governing bodies here want to make sure that we're not going to go prey on anybody who, this is their last $25,000 or they're only $25,000, whatnot. And so I get that, but it really is kind of a rich getting richer type of a scenario. So I'm working with individuals who they've already done well in whatever endeavor they're in. They're doctors, dentists, entrepreneurs, who are or W-2 employees, salaried employees who are just making a great income, whatever they're doing. They know real estate is powerful. There's a lot of good tax advantages here in the States. There's great returns here. They just don't want to deal with the landlording issues and fixing toilets.
Someone who's about to go on Country House Rescue, I can totally appreciate that. The tenants that have trashed the house and it's going to take 3 months to fix it up and all the money that gets
painful.
It's almost like when we were talking about before about outsourcing your fulfillment, isn't it? It's kind of outsourcing something that you can still be a part of. You can still get the status and the prestige of saying, I'm investing in property, but you can be you are completely hands off.
It is exactly completely it's passive. You're involved in it. You can drive up to it and put your hands on that wall and say, I own a slice of this apartment building. This is amazing, but you're not the one fielding the phone calls from the tenants that are frustrated at something, or, a pipe breaks, or, you get a freeze and it breaks something, whatever. You're not dealing with that stuff, or these bad tenants that trash the place that are going to take you 3 months. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to fix up. I've been there. And again, I still have some of my own rentals that are headaches to me at this point. They're just nothing more than headaches. But for, one of them, I've got to spend a little bit more time fixing up because of some bad issues there. I need to do that first and then sell it off. But it's these people I'm working with, they're already good at doing whatever they're doing. They believe the same idea: multiple streams of passive income, multiple streams of income. How do I get involved in real estate? I get to go and show them, hey, here's how, without having to lift a finger, other than to go touch the building whenever you want to and say, hey, I own a slice of this.
How hard is it to find those people?
The the reality is in the US right now, there's a lot of money chasing deals. And there are a lot of opportunities for people with cash looking for, real estate investments. And so the challenge for me is getting in front of them before they commit their dollars to some other deal. It's not necessarily 5 years ago, that's not very long ago, but commercial syndications were not as well known. Now they're pretty well known. And I think the perceived risk has diminished quite a bit. And so you've got a lot of doctors, dentists, successful business owners looking for these alternative investments, alternative streams of income. That just basically they're looking for, who can they trust? How do I vet one of these opportunities? And that's where I try to insert myself. So as they're starting to do their searches, maybe they're starting to listen to some podcasts around real estate, hanging out in some real estate forums. Maybe they see something that I've put there, some content that I put out, and then we can strike up a conversation. I can show them our process and go from there. So they're out there. There's more deals looking for dollars than there are deals at this point. And so it's just a matter of, you've just got to find where these people are hanging out and get in front of them.
I want to ask you a question about building that trust, but I think what we forget, and one of the things that we are getting bombarded with, is it's really tough for retail right now. And sure, it is really tough for some sectors of retail, especially, here in Australia, we're back in week 10 of lockdown, 1,000 cases yesterday. 1,000 cases yesterday. However, back last year at the top of the pandemic, we didn't even reach 300. So we are now 3-4 times the amount of cases that we had at the height of the pandemic. So we're kind of at the height of the pandemic now.
Yeah.
And there are definitely some sectors of retail that are struggling, but there are a lot of sectors, especially in the e-commerce realm, that have just absolutely exploded. And there is a lot of money out there. And we forget, especially if we are in a business that's maybe struggling, that there are people with money who want to spend it. So my question for you is, how do you get these high net worth individuals to trust you?
I think when I'm talking to somebody who is 5 minutes ago was a stranger, and I'm telling them about an opportunity, and the minimum investment is $50,000. That's, you can't take that lightly, right? That's a big jump. And so I think having some of those initial, I just call it, the basic stuff, some of that foundation of some online presence, some reason why these people would trust me. It starts with, I think, having a public face. So they see me on my website, they see me connect on Twitter, they see me connecting with people like you who maybe they already know and trust you, and then by extension they might extend some trust to me as well, or at least a willingness to trust.
Yeah.
And so you've got these, it's and it's a whole lot easier when there's a referral in place. If I've got an investor that I've already been working with, and he refers to me 2 or 3 of his friends or siblings or whatnot, that's a much easier connection. But it's it is, we go through the deals and the safety guards that are in place. These aren't just kind of funds that you don't get to see what's going on. We're saying, hey, we're buying this asset in Atlanta, this asset in Dallas. We can go drive there and look at it. And here's, you're going to get monthly reports on this. So we go through all these, these details. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, do they know and like Brad? Even though
it's your company, it's you. It's like, it's me. I have a team of people, but at the end of the day, they have to trust that I am going to help them.
Yes, exactly. And some people are more willing to do that on one phone call. Others want to get together for 3 or 4 times. I'm certainly going to go at their pace, but being able to answer those questions, coming in a willingness to spend time, having the skill set to answer the majority of their questions, saying, I don't know, I'll get back to you when I need to do that. I think just all those typical, just normal, good human type of approaches with that public face. They know, I like to, say, the same reason I might extend some trust to other people. I know if this individual really messes up, runs away with the cash, they're risking a lot because of their online, what they've built as far as their platform and their brand. if word gets out, this guy's shady, that whole platform just dissolves. And so having more of that trust you can build with a bigger brand, with a bigger presence, I think that is also incredibly helpful. That starts it. And then just that typical dialogue back and forth, getting a good sense for one another, hearing a little bit of my story. I've been there. My dollars are in these deals as well. All those things contribute to building that. And then once they start seeing those first initial checks coming through, even when they're happy with that, how that one asset's going, but it's still ongoing, we have another asset to invest in, and they're saying, hey, I'm liking how this is going. Round two is much easier because they're seeing how things are playing out.
So I was going to ask you, how do you scale that trust to reach a bigger audience and to get more investors? Obviously there's referrals, but the bigger your company gets, the less it becomes about you. Or is that not how it works?
It really, it's not a high volume game. So we're bigger dollars, fewer people. And so, I might be working with dozens of high net worth individuals, rather, it's not thousands. And so it is not the same type of scale that I'm looking for. I'm building up my email list. I'm out there trying to get in front of more people. I know that, if 50 people sign up, I might have conversations, or on my email list, I might have conversations with 10 of them, 3 invest. So it's same type of funnel. So I need, continue to expand that, but I'm not looking for thousands of people. At the end, because this is a high trust scenario, it's going to be Brad. I'm going to be talking with them. So I can't outsource that. There's no fulfillment center for that element. But what I do need to get is continue to grow that top of the funnel, getting those conversations to dollars into the bank account.
And I suspect it also means stepping away from putting your fingers in all the pies. You can't be sending out letters. You can't be fixing the back of your email system. That you need to have people for that. Otherwise you don't have the time to spend with your customers.
Absolutely. That's where I want to hang out. I want to hang out with these intelligent individuals who have questions. They have some interest here. I don't want to be the one cleaning up the email database or fine tuning the website. Those are the elements that I can outsource. The more I can be in communication with my investors, the better.
To me, that's why you build a business, to do the part of it that you love. But so many people get caught up in, like we said, packing orders, sending out orders, uploading the website, fixing the back end of the website, that they forget the reason that they went into business in the first place. Nobody wants to do the things that absolutely drive us insane. We want to be able to focus on the things that we love, but it does take that mindset shift to be able to say, I'm not going to do that. Like, it's actually not worth my time. It costs me more to do that myself. Did you ever have any difficulty stepping up into that kind of leadership CEO role?
Absolutely. As you were saying there, I almost interrupted you to share. I mean, because there are things that I look at and that I have people help me with, that I do have contractors that do website and actually send out the emails. And there's sometimes I look at those frequently. I look at some things as I would have done that a little different. It's tempting to think I could do that better. Or, I'm just going to do it because, it's going to save me on the back, save more time than on the back and forth anyway. So I'll just knock it out real quick. And that's all really short-sighted thinking. It's if you, of all those elements in our business, maybe we could do all of them better than anybody we could hire. Right. But if you end up getting bogged down in that, then you can't do the things that we're uniquely suited to. And so it is tough. It's a challenge to hand over keys to some important elements. But it goes, you do the training, you have those back and forths that might cost more time up front, but down the road lead to freedom for us to focus on the things, again, that we're uniquely suited to. And so it does take building systems. It does take building up people. It does take, long-term relationships with contractors, things written out clearly so that you can get to that point. But I'm definitely not one to say it's easy, because I
think one of the hardest parts is when you are the visionary type person, when you know what you want, where you want to go, the people you want to hang with, your customers you want to serve, giving that up in the back end. Like just yesterday, I had a conversation with Tef, our ads guy, and he created a video, and I was like, it's like 95% great. And I was like, he said, oh, what do you want me to fix? I said, no, run with it. It's just not the way I would have done it, but there's nothing wrong with it. Like it's the way you interpreted it, which is probably a good thing, because in my head, it looks a certain way, but you're not in my head. So you can look at it from the outside. And so at 95%, things are good to go in this business. Like, just because it's not my 100%, 95% is good.
Yes. And there are so many elements, we talked about the ones that I feel like, okay, I could have done that better, or it's not exactly how I would have done that. But there are so many other elements. The last time I built a website from scratch, it was probably 8 or 9 years ago. I can get into WordPress and dink around and mess some, play around, move something, but I know other people can do that better than me. So while there are some of those elements we feel like we can do better, there are people, again, just like that fulfillment center, they can pack boxes and ship them and handle returns better than I can. Take advantage of that. It might cost some money up front. Well worth it. Take advantage of these skill set that people have. Even if you get to just a 95% of, that's how I would have, 95% of how I would have done it. Perfect.
I reckon people like us, our 95% is actually everybody else's 105%. So it's all good. I just remember what I was going to say is, when you are in this kind of leadership visionary role, the concept of putting processes in place hurts our brain so much that they just don't get done. We've actually just hired a project manager to come on board to put all of the processes in place, even though I've always talked about how you should always start processes right from the beginning of the business. We've grown, and now I've realized our processes are crap. And so it's costing me thousands of dollars to get somebody to come in and ask the questions. How does this get done? What goes next? Are you sure you don't do this in between? Oh yeah, we do, but that's not written down anywhere. So it's,
you had it in your head.
It was in my head, or it was in one of our team members' heads, and now it all has to come out so that we can scale, because you can't scale, in my opinion, if you don't have the processes in place. Because every time you want to onboard a new agency to do something for you, or a new person to do something for you, you're doing them a disservice if you don't give them all the information that they need to do their job.
Yeah. The companies that we all know, the brands that we've heard, whether primarily in the food establishments or some of the, even in the service industry, franchises, right? You've got to think like that franchise owner, the franchise creators. How do we systematize? Even if that's not even in the realm of the direction you're going to take your business, you've got to think like that. If I stepped away from this, if I'm going to go, I want to take 6 months off. Could somebody step in my shoes and execute this in my absence? That's maybe extreme, but those systems are so important. That's, I always try to remember that, document it, write it down, think like that franchise creator, so that anybody could come in here and rinse and repeat. And I'm not, the things aren't just going to completely fall off the wheels if I'm down.
You're not the sticking point, because I've been that. I've been the bottleneck where things haven't happened because it's waiting on me to get something done, when actually I could have just given that to somebody else.
But you had a hard time letting go of it for whatever reason, right?
I'm actually really good at delegating. It's just sometimes I forget to delegate. So I am like the outsource queen. I am happy to give that job that I don't like to somebody else, but sometimes I just forget, like you said, that bit of the process that's not written down, and it sort of stops, because I'm like, we forgot that bit that is usually me being the conduit, and I don't need to be the conduit anymore. But before we finish, sorry, go.
I was just gonna say, and I've seen people do that really well on the real estate side, even just the single family fix and flip world, where they've got 10 or 15 flips going at a time. They know they're using the same paint color over and over, the same door handles over and over. They just have that all written down. They know exactly what parts to order and when. And I could have gone that route, but I just realized I don't like that world. It's just not it doesn't speak to me as well as working on these bigger deals, looking at the spreadsheets to go with this, talking to these intelligent investors. And so I wanted to systematize this world. But regardless of whatever, element you're going to chase, it's, those things, having those processes and those rinse and repeat type of elements is just hugely important.
I feel like we're on the same wavelength, because I was literally going to ask you, when you jumped in, the question of, do you actually like getting your hands dirty and flipping houses? Because we're packing up the house, because this is something I absolutely love doing. I love building things. I love DIY. I love the design aspect of it. And I could totally outsource it. And I outsource things like tiling and electrical and plumbing. But when it comes to the painting and building stuff and just creating the overall, I guess, the vision for the property, that's the part I love to keep. And it's the part that I enjoy. So is there any part of the fix and flip that you like?
Structuring the deal and then getting out of the way. So, I've been there. My first fix and flip, I didn't live at the house, but it felt like I was living at the house because I just spent all day there working, making the runs to the home goods supply store. I wanted, I was learning a ton, but I knew that's just not my skill set. When it came down to picking out the tiles and picking out the color and the door handles, I'm deer in the headlights. Honestly, that makes me feel nauseous. I really don't enjoy it. And so we did several fix and flips, and we did well on all but one of them. And then, after we did a couple, and after one went poorly, we partnered with a husband and wife contractor team. He was the contractor, she was the designer, split it 50-50. We found the deal, funded it, and they did the work. I was in heaven. Perfect. That's exactly what I want, how
That's
I want to do this.
It's a good partnership, isn't it? The good partnership.
It worked.
I kind of have that with my husband. Is I have the big picture vision, and then he goes, but what? But how? Don't spoil my bubble. Doesn't matter how it's going to happen. It's just going to happen.
That's right. So for me, being at a job site every day and seeing that slow incremental progress to me is kind of painful. Disappearing for a week and coming back saying, oh my gosh, you guys got this done and that's done. That looks amazing. For me, that's much more satisfying than seeing the daily slow incremental stuff. And I know some other people really enjoy being the one to get, to be in the day-to-day. But for me, when it comes to those elements, not so much. In my house, I'm outside, as soon as I'm outside, doing the yard work, building something out there. Talking about putting up we just bought a new house where we're already scoping out where we're going to put the tree house and a zip line and things like that. And I'm going to have, I have fun with that kind of stuff.
But it's not a job.
But I know it doesn't have to look pretty.
And you don't have to get a return on investment.
Exactly.
Well, my plan is when the world opens back up, we would love to buy a property in San Diego. So you may have some connections for me over there. For people who are listening and thinking, I need to learn more about real estate, or I love the concept of multi-stream revenue or investing, where can they find more about Brad Shepherd?
Best place to connect with me is our website, sugarhouseinvestments.com. That's where you can find our lead magnet. So put your email address in there and get a copy of that, or just find my email address there as well. Set up a time to chat. Sugarhouseinvestments.com. That's where you'll find me.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selinaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selinaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.